Hey everyone, welcome to another video in our Japanese learning series. So in this video, we're going to learn some very important JLPT N3 grammar points. I have specially selected grammar patterns that are frequently tested in JLPT exam. So alright, let's get into the content. The first grammar point for today is darake. So darake is used after a noun and it expresses the idea that something or someone is completely covered with something, usually something undesirable. So for example, kega darake, which means you are covered with injuries, as well as chi darake. So it means you are covered in blood, especially after an incident. So you can also say kodomo darake no heya, so it means a room full of children. Now, most importantly, let's look at a JLPT exam question to understand how this grammar actually appears in the test. So here is one of the past exam question, which is Jiko no ato kare wa kei ga honiarara ni natta. So which one of the following four options do you think is the correct answer? The correct answer is C. So if you guessed it correctly, congratulations, you have secured 1 marks in the JLPT. So in the second grammar points of the series, I would like to differentiate between two similar looking grammar patterns that the students often get confused in the exam. So let's go into a bit detail. So on the left hand side, we have verb dictionary form plus koto wa nai. And on the right hand side, we have verb dictionary form plus wake ga nai. So koto wa nai generally means there is no need to do something or it is not necessary. So it's a gentle, logical expression and often used to reassure someone. While on the other hand, wake ga nai expresses a strong denial. So it means something like there is no way that could happen or it's absolutely impossible to think that way. So let's understand this with one example sentence for each grammar. So first, shinpai suru koto wa nai desu yo. So this means there is no need to worry. Now for wake ga nai, kare wa sonna koto o suru wake ga nai. So this means there is no way he would do such a thing. So if you compare these two sentences, you will notice a clear difference. The first one expresses a soft and a logical judgment, while on the second hand, the second one strongly denies the possibility that he would ever do such thing. I have included one past exam questions where a large number of students often fail to choose the correct answer. So here is the question. 彼はとっても真面目で約束を守る人です。だから約束を破るほにゃらら。So, which option do you think is correct? 心配することはない。心配するわけがない。そんなことをするわけがない。So, the correct answer is そんなことをするわけがない。So now you might be thinking, why isn't the option 1 correct? So we just saw a similar example earlier. So here is the critical point. In this sentence, 約束を破る refers to his action. So, but shinpai suru refers to the listener's feeling. So if you choose option 1 and 2, there is a logical shift in the subject from his behavior to our emotions. That's why we can eliminate both options. So option 3 may seem acceptable, but it is softer and less decisive compared to option 4. So, そんなことをするわけがない is the most accurate choice here. Now let's move on to the third set of similar looking grammar patterns. So this time we will compare verb stem form plus tsutsu aru and verb stem form plus gachi desu. These two forms look similar and often both are associated with a negative situation, which is why they are frequently confused students in the JLPT exam. So first, let's look at their meanings. Tsutsu aru is used to describe something that is continuously changing or currently in progress. So it is commonly used in formal contexts such as in news reports or in academic writings. On the other hand, gachi desu express a tendency or a habit, something that often happens especially related to a person's feelings or his behavior. So now let's understand this with examples. The first example is Bukka wa agari tsutsu aru. And this means prices are gradually rising. So second example, Ame no hi wa kibun ga ochikomi gachi desu. So this means on rainy days, I tend to feel depressed. So now let's clearly differentiate these two. The first sentence sounds formal and objective and very similar to news style language. That's why we use here the tsutsu aru. The second sentence describes the habitual tendency and expresses a person's feelings. That's why gachi desu is correct choice. Alright, so now let's try a JLPT style question. This type of question is designed to confuse you by offering multiple similar options. So here is the question. この町は少子高齢化が進み、ほにゃらら. So which option do you think is correct? ガチだ、そうだ、つつある、ようだ. The correct answer is つつある. So why? As I mentioned earlier, tsu aru is especially used in formal descriptions. And the population aging and declining birth rates are objective social facts, not someone's feeling. That's why tsu aru fits perfectly in this sentence. Now let's move on to the fourth set of similar looking grammar patterns. Verb dictionary form plus ipoda and ipode. At first time, so these two look similar, but their functions are clearly different. The first ipoda is very similar to what we have learned earlier in grammar point 3. It expresses one directional sense, a situation that continued in one direction, so often without stopping. So ipode means it is used to contrast two ideas or two aspects of same situation. Let's understand this with specific examples. First example, Jinkouga heru ippoda. This means the population keeps decreasing. So here the change continues only in one direction. So ippoda is appropriate here. So second example, Benrina ippode sumaho wa izon o umu. So this means smartphones are convenient. On the other hand, they create dependency. So in this sentence, we are clearly contrasting two ideas, which is why ipode is used. So did you notice something important here? So ipoda always comes at the end of sentence, while ipode appears in the middle of sentence, connecting two ideas. So this structural difference is very important in JLPT. Now let's look at a JLPT style question. Saikin buka wa agaru honyarara. So which option do you think is correct? Ippode, bakkari da, ippoda, tokoro da. The correct answer is C, ippoda. And why? Because this sentence describes a continuous tendency of prices increasing. So there is no contrast with other ideas. Since the sentence focuses only on one directional sense, ippoda is the most accurate choice here. Now let's move on to the fifth set of similar looking grammar patterns, uete and ueni. So many JLPT students tend to confuse these two and assume they have same meaning. However, in reality, they serve very different functions. First, let's look at uede. Uede is used to mean from the viewpoint of something or after doing something. So it indicates that the action comes first and a decision or result follows. So now ueni has a completely different role. It means in addition to that, it is used to add supporting information that strengthens the previous statement. So while uede focus on process or condition, ueni focus on addition and emphasis. Let's understand this clearly with examples. First example with uede. Anzenmen o kangaeta uede kettei shimasu. This means we will decide after considering safety. Here uede shows that considering safety comes first and making the decision happens after that. Now an example with ueni. Kono mise wa yasui ue ni aji mo ii. This means not only this shop is cheap, but also the food here is good. So in this case, the second clause adds extra positive information. Now let's see how this appears in JLPT style exam question. Kono restaurant wa aji ga ii honyarara nedan mo yasui. So at this point, you should already have a strong intuition. So we are connecting two positive statements here. And the second one is supporting the first. So which grammar should we use? Exactly, ueni. That means the correct answer is option B. Now let's move on to the sixth set of similar looking grammar patterns, yo ga nai and shou ga nai. Because these two sound very similar, many students assume these mean the same thing. However, their meanings and uses are completely different. Now first look at yo ga nai. Yo ga nai means there is no way to do something. It expresses a situation where the method itself does not exist. In other words, it is impossible because there is no means. Now, shou ga nai is different. It is used when the situation is hopeless or unavoidable, that there is nothing else you can do. So, to summarize, yo ga nai means no method, no way. Shou ga nai means unavoidable reality or resignation. Let's understand this with examples. First, an example with yo ga nai. Mizu ni ochita you desu. Kono kamera wa naoshi you ga nai. This means it looks like it fell into the water. That's why there is no way to fix this camera. So here the problem is the lack of a method. That's why yo ga nai is the correct choice. Now an example with shou ga nai. Ame dakara ikenai no wa shou ga nai. So this means it is raining, so I can't go, so it can't be helped. Now let's look at a JLPT exam question. Deta ga zenbu kiete shimatta node mou kakunin shi honyarara. So which option do you think is correct? Shou ni nai, shou ga nai, yo ga nai, hazu ga nai. Well, the correct answer is C. Yo ga nai. Now let's look at another very important grammar points, yoni. So at a basic level, yoni simply means kudasai or shinasai. So however, unlike those expressions, yoni is usually placed at the end of the sentence and sound more gentle and indirect. So let's understand this with an example. Kiyo tsukete kega shinai yoni. So this means be careful so that you don't get injured. Here, yoni express a desired result or condition. The speaker is not directly ordering but politely guiding the listener's behavior. So if you add kudasai after the verb, the meaning becomes more direct and commanding. So you can think of yoni as a softer and more considerate instruction. Now let's see how this grammar appears in JLPT style exam question. Wasure mono o shinai. Honyarara dekakeru mae ni kakunin shite kudasai. So at this point, some students choose tameni because they learn tameni in JLPT N4. But this is exactly where you need to be careful. Tameni is used when subject can intentionally control the action. However, not forgetting something is not fully controllable. It's state or result. That's why yoni is correct choice here. Next, let's look at a very confusing but extremely important grammar points. Many students get confused by this one because it ends with nai. So they automatically assume the meaning is negative. However, this is where most students make a mistake. So even though it ends with nai, kane nai actually express a positive possibility, meaning something might happen. So yes, despite nai, the meaning is not negative. Kane nai is used to warn that something undesirable may occur. So if the current situation continues. So let's look at an example. Kono mama dato jiko ga oki kane nai. So this means at this rate an accident might happen. So here the sentence clearly shows a positivity of occurrence, not denial. That's the key concept. Now let's move on to a JLPT style exam question. Kono mama yobukashi o tsuzukeru to karada o kowasu honyarara. So which option do you think is correct? So da, kane nai, hazu da, koto wa nai. The correct answer is B, kane nai. Why? Because the sentence is warning that if you continue staying up late, there is a real risk that your health may get damaged. Now let's move on to the second last grammar pattern. Verb nai form plus ju ni wa irare nai. Let's understand with an example. Terebi ga omoshiroku te waraju ni wa irare nakatta. This means the TV show was so funny that I couldn't help laughing. Here, the laughter happens naturally, not because the speaker decided to laugh. That's the key point of ju ni wa irare nai. Now let's see how this grammar appears in JLPT question. Eiga ga kandouteki de nami o nagasa honyarara. Which option do you think is correct? Nai de wa irare nakatta, nai wake ga nakatta, ju ni wa irare nakatta, te wa irare nakatta. Well, the correct answer is C. Ju ni wa irare nakatta. Now let's look at a final grammar pattern. Verb te wa irare nai. So this expression means you cannot afford to do something. It's emotionally or situationally impossible to keep doing it. It is used when you might want to do something or the situation make it impossible to continue. Let's look at an example. Kare no sugata o mite wa irare nai. This means I cannot keep watching him like this. The speaker is emotionally unable to continue the action. Now let's see how this appears in JLPT style question. Shiken ga chikai no de asonde honyarara. Which option do you think is correct? いられない、ならない、見せない、いけない。The correct answer is A. いられない。Why? Because the sentence expresses situational pressure. The exam is near, so continuing to play is not realistic or acceptable.